Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. I see a lot of new faces, so our advertising went well, it seems. It's my great pleasure to introduce to Dr. Katrin Amian from the AVH Foundation, and we also have Anna Bauer, who represents DAAD. So today's going to be not a traditional science talk, I'm sure you're aware. So I'm going to describe a little bit about my fellowship that I did as part of the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation in Germany, and then Katrin's going to give a little bit of a background about the foundation and what sort of funds they support. So Alexander von Humboldt was a great German explorer and scientist, and he's not very well known in the Western world. He was considered one of the most famous men in his era, and possibly as famous as Darwin. Darwin is super famous now to everybody, but von Humboldt's unfortunately been lost to some degree. He did an American journey to the South America, and this is a 5-year journey. This is like a crazy research visit compared to nowadays, where we complain about traveling overseas. In the next slide, we have an illustration of what he did. If you think nowadays we can fly overseas, we moan about a 12-hour flight to the US or a bit longer to Europe. This was a 5-year journey. You can see where he's gone from Spain and gone around and back to France. So this is a really crazy exploring that he's doing over this extended period. To celebrate his 100th year, his 100th birthday, he had passed away then, in 1868, they actually had celebrations throughout the world, throughout Europe, Africa, Australia, and in the Americas. And I forget the numbers exactly, but in American cities, he had 8,000 people to celebrate in certain cities. In New York, they had about 25,000 people gathered to celebrate him. In Berlin, which was the greatest one, apparently they had pouring rain, but they had 80,000 people to celebrate his 100th birthday. So he was a really famous guy. So for whatever reason, he's been largely forgotten in the English-speaking world, but he's the father of a broad field of environmental science. So he developed understanding of how things work holistically, and that's thought to be one of the reasons why he's been forgotten a little bit. He doesn't have an equation or a theory named after him, unlike some of the earlier scientists that had a focused area. He does have an amazing amount of things named after him: 300 plants, 100 animals, 13 towns in the US, a number of universities, even got an area on the moon that's been named after him. So quite spectacular for somebody that probably a lot of people you haven't heard about him previously. In New Zealand, we have a waterfall based in Fieldwork that's named after him as well, so we didn't miss out. My research area is in electrophysiology, and so in all my learnings, we learnt about the studies of Galvani here, where he did experiments on frogs, and he was able to touch a piece of metal and get the deceased frog to move based upon electricity. But I discovered over the last couple of years that von Humboldt was also interested in this sort of area, and there's a picture here, an equivalent frog-type experiment that he was conducting himself as well, in exactly similar time frame as Galvani. So he was fascinated by this area, and this is an excerpt from a book that I had access to, and he was fascinated by the idea of animal electricity. And he began a series of 4,000 experiments where he cut and prodded and poked different parts of animals. However, not content with experimenting on animals himself, he began to use his own body to do these experiments. And he did this at night after he had finished his work, his normal work day job. And so I'm reading here, with a scalpel he made incisions on his arms and his torso. Then he carefully rubbed chemicals and acids in open wounds, or stuck metal wires and electrodes on his own skin or under his tongue. So he was really fascinated by how the human body worked. Goes a bit further. His body looked as battered as a sea urchin, and he admitted but he also proudly reported that despite the great pain, it all went splendidly. So you can see this is a scientist that really, truly likes to explore and understand, find a greater understanding. This is a picture from one of his South American travels. He was interested in electric eels. So electric eels are able to produce electricity and they stun their prey to order to capture them. And so he wanted to explore and figure out how these electric eels were able to deliver these electric shocks. He didn't want to go in the water, he didn't want to be electrocuted. So what he did was he drove these horses into the lake, and you can see what's probably him up there. And these eels are attacking the horses, and after a couple of hours, or after a period, the eels had exhausted themselves, and he's able to go and harvest these eels and perform this particular study. So he was very resourceful as well. It was a bit unfortunate for the horses, unfortunately. So the foundation, which Katrin will talk a bit more about, aims to promote international academic cooperation between excellent scientists and scholars from Germany and abroad. Okay, so it's a very general and broad association. They don't have very specific areas of research which they're interested in. So it's good for all scientists. So this is a photo from the annual meeting in Berlin in 2005 where I received my award, and that was a special year. We had about 4 awardees from New Zealand, and we did better than Australia that year, so that's very good. It's not very often that we manage to achieve that, I think, from the records. So during my visit, I was based in Stuttgart. So Stuttgart's a smaller town in Germany, in the southern Germany, and it's well known for its cars. It's the headquarters for Porsche and the headquarters for Mercedes-Benz. 2 slightly smaller companies, smaller in quotes, is Karcher, which is famous for its water blasters, and Bosch. So Bosch in New Zealand is probably more known for its power tools and its kitchen appliances, but it's probably more actually well known for its electronics that it supplies to these car companies. So it's a major supplier of car parts. And so when I visited, I'd say, oh, I'm here to work with you. I'm an engineer, I do some work here, I'm visiting. And so the question that the people and the shopkeepers always say, are you here to visit Mercedes, are you here to visit Porsche, or here to visit Bosch? It's always those 3 companies that they always ask you. So I was based at the Fraunhofer Institute and also worked a little bit at the Stuttgart University. And so you can see here, there's a massive powerhouse for, at least for engineering here. And the whole of southern Germany is a major powerhouse of engineering. Oh, here's a slide that deviates slightly. So we have here in the Porsche Museum 1900s. Here's an electric motor inside his wheel hub here, and this is exactly what we're trying to do nowadays with electric cars. So back in the 1900s, they're already investigating those sort of ideas. The Fraunhofer Society is which was the society that sponsored my research visit. And so to give everybody a bit of background, so it consists of 60 to 70 institutes. And so the institutes form this Fraunhofer Society as a whole. And so this is the largest research organization for applied research in Europe. To give you an idea of size, it's got 25,000 staff and a research budget of about $2 billion. So it's a massive organization. And it's probably its most famous outcome that the general public know about is the MP3 compression algorithm, which they invented and patented, and that's very recently just come off its patent. So they earned a lot of money from licensing fees from that. To give you, for the engineers, this is from their website. This is the patents they put through each year. You see here the patent applications, there's 600, and they say they do 2 every working day. So 2 patent applications a day. And it's consistent across the last 4 or 5 years. So they're a major engineering powerhouse for ideas and concepts. The Fraunhofer I was based at was called the Fraunhofer IPA. So their focus was on manufacturing engineering and for automation. And I was based in the mechanical engineering biotechnology department. So I won't go too much on to sort of the research that I was doing, because I think we'll keep that kind of for a different day. But the fellowship that I got opened up huge opportunities, I think. previously to receiving this award from the foundation, we had almost no research links with Europe. We had very strong links with 3 or 4 American universities. And I think we've addressed that over the course of my fellowship. We have very strong links with Europe now, and the American links are probably reducing to some degree. So for whatever reason, we hadn't really explored Europe, and this seed has catalyzed a whole lot of research opportunities with different research groups in Europe. So over the last 3 years or so, I've had the chance to meet with the Chancellor Merkel. That was a unique opportunity. In June, we had, that was the first annual meeting I had, was at the President of Germany's palace. And this was the former President of Germany, and he did an amazing job. I thought he'd turn up, give a speech, and disappear again, but he stayed around for over an hour taking photographs of every single person there that wanted to take a photo. I feel really sorry for his bodyguards. They were totally freaking out about the situation, but he was really dedicated to the whole cause. I had the opportunity this year as part of the 40th celebration of scientific relationships with Germany and New Zealand to present on behalf of the New Zealand Embassy in Berlin. And so this was an event that they organized in Berlin. And then just last week, the president was in Germany, the new president from Germany was in Wellington, and we had another presentation with him. So I've met the current chancellor and the last two presidents over the last couple of years. So that's the end of my talk, and I think what I'll do is I'll pass on to Katrin, and we can answer any questions that we have afterwards.
Thank you, Leo. We need to do a quick switch of microphone. We'll be fine. I'll just put it here. Yes, so thank you. My name is Katrin Amian. Leo introduced me, and I wish to thank Leo and the Humboldt community here in New Zealand, also Eamon O'Brien, sitting right there, for hosting me here in New Zealand. I flew in here for a meeting that we held in Wellington over the weekend of alumni of the Humboldt Foundation from New Zealand and Australia. And so it's wonderful to be here and to have the opportunity to speak to and share some information about the Humboldt Foundation and the opportunities that we have. So what I'd like to do today is to introduce the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation and our sponsorship opportunities, and also to share a bit of information about some of the activities that we're doing specifically here in New Zealand. So Leo already gave kind of a general picture of the foundation. I won't go into too much detail, but maybe add here at this point that we're pleased that Alexander von Humboldt is our namesake, since the idea of leaving kind of your home and going out to discover the world is still something that we cherish highly, since we provide funding for individuals to leave their settings and go somewhere else to make new collaborations and meet new people. So that's very much what inspires our work. And the foundation as it exists today was founded in 1953, and we've been doing pretty much the same kind of work since then. We have a core set of principles that are, in a way, fairly simple. We fund individuals rather than projects. Our aim is to select individuals who will then, for the entire period of their academic life, remain drivers behind whatever research they do. So it's not just about that initial project that is necessary for an application, but it's more the idea of an international community of fellows who continue to do interesting work throughout their careers. So we have no quotas for countries or for disciplines. We fund the entire range of disciplines, from philosophy and the arts to engineering sciences, so everything's possible. And we don't have quotas for countries, meaning that the sole selection criterion for our fellowships and prizes is the academic excellence of the individual. That's a core principle that we have had since the 50s, and we continue to do that. We trust in the individual, and that also means that we expect individuals to choose their own collaborative partners and also to decide on their own research projects, which is why we don't set kind of priorities in certain research topics, but we remain open as an organization to whatever projects or proposals the individual candidates come up with and wish to pursue. We provide more than 700 fellowships and awards annually, so it is in a way a substantial operation that we have, and we, as I will say, try to target the different opportunities that we have to different career phases. And as we say, we sponsor people rather than projects. We also aim to keep the sponsorship fairly individual, meaning that we provide individual contacts at the foundation and also seek to stay in touch then over a lifetime, as long as fellows wish to. It's an invitation to fellow. The Humboldt Foundation is funded by the German government. We are a private foundation, but we don't have an endowment, which is why we rely on government support for our programs. And this chart shows you that we have a current budget for 2016 about 160 million euros. This means that we're substantial, but within the community, the larger landscape of German funding organizations, we're also small. So it's kind of where we stand, and I'll say a few more words about that in a minute. Traditionally, our funding came from the Foreign Office, so it was also part of an effort to reach out to the world and to form friendships after World War II, to create kind of a new network, a positive network of connections around the world. But as you see now, by now, our programs are also heavily funded by the research ministry in Germany, and we've kind of diversified the portfolio of government support. So I'm here to talk about the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation, but I wish to stress that the German research landscape is actually very substantial, and that there are many opportunities out there. So this slide gives you a map of Germany and the many research institutions that are available there. And with a funding from the Humboldt Foundation, you can go anywhere to any research institution in Germany. At the same time, many of these places also have their own programs in place. So if you wish to, or you seek to reach out to collaborative partners in Germany, there's certainly a way to go about that, even if in the end maybe the Humboldt programs are not the programs that will bring you there. That's why I also brought this list of funding organizations, and we have the DAAD here represented by Anna Bauer. The DAAD is a much larger organization that covers a much broader range of opportunities for stays in Germany. And we have an entire other range of either research funding or research institutions that provide opportunities. And last but not least, Germany is a player within the European Union, and so there's also European money available, including, for instance, the Marie Curie research fellowships. And there are databases that are available where you can actually search for funding mechanisms that will bring you to Europe or to Germany. And I think that's important to stress here, to give you that broader picture. And there's information material in the background. Thanks to Anna for bringing that along. So you're welcome to pick that up. But now back to the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation. Our focus is on research, funding researchers to come to Germany, and we start at the postdoc level. That's kind of the specific target that we have as a foundation. So this overview shows that the different career stages that we have in kind of our universe of targeting programs to different career stages. So from postdocs through junior research group leaders, experienced researchers up to 12 years after the PhD, and then to internationally renowned researchers at the height of their academic careers. And then you can see a list of programs there that list the opportunities that we provide. Now today here, I thought my emphasis will be on the Humboldt Research Fellowship Program, and then I'll briefly also introduce the prize programs, which supported Leo Cheng during his stay in Germany. But perhaps first our largest program, the Humboldt Research Fellowship Program. We grant about 550 to 600 fellowships a year in this program. And as I said, there are no quotas for countries or for disciplines. So it's open to anyone from abroad to apply for this program. It comes in 2 program lines, but it's one program that is that we as a foundation actually see as one program. But the 2 funding lines target the 2 different career stages. So with the postdoc fellowships, it's possible that you apply for a 24 months or a 2-year postdoc fellowship to come to Germany and do your postdoc research there. And for us, the definition of the postdoc period is 4 years after the PhD. So right from the doctorate up to 4 years after the PhD, this would be the phase to apply for a postdoctoral research fellowship. More experienced researchers often already have obligations at the institutions where they are. So it's difficult to leave their institutions for a longer period of time, which is why the period is a bit shorter here, and there's more flexibility. So stays can be divided into 3 months segments, and the minimum would be 2 times 3 months within a period of 3 years. So that gives much more flexibility to thinking how the collaboration might fit into your research projects, perhaps here in New Zealand, and your obligations here might still be met while you're reaching out and establishing new contacts with partners in Germany. So our definition here in the fellowship program is that it's possible to apply up to 12 years after the PhD. You see the monthly fellowship amount here. This is an amount that is tax-free in Germany, and it's meant to cover the cost of living in Germany. And in Germany, this amount will actually help you to live a decent life. So we do monitor kind of the cost of living expenses in Germany and make sure this is an attractive offer for our fellows in Germany. Here in New Zealand, it might seem not a lot of money, but in Germany, it will actually, I think, cover what you need to live there and do research there. Application requirements are that you hold a PhD, since it starts at the postdoc level, but it's possible to send in your application before the official end of your PhD period. So it's possible that you apply for funding before you complete your PhD. You just need to have that certificate there before you start the fellowship then. In the fellowship program, it's important that you already have a host in Germany, so that you have a collaborative partner who will host you during the fellowship. And with this application process, we need a letter of support by the host who will confirm that he or she wishes to work with you and thinks that this is an interesting and great proposal. Candidates need to formulate a research proposal for the fellowship. Independent here means that you need to show that it's your idea. It's not the German partner assigning a piece of work within the group, but that you as a researcher, even if you're still in an early phase, already have an idea of what you want to propose in your project to the German collaborative side. I skipped past academic publications. They are important in a way because that's where the selection committee can look at what you've done so far in terms of your research. So it doesn't make sense to apply if you don't have any applications yet, any publications yet. And the further on you are in your research career, the more comprehensive this list will be. But I guess that's kind of a simple fact that that's how it's going to be. And it's not necessary to speak German to come to Germany or to get a Humboldt Fellowship. In many German research institutions, English is sufficient as a language that will help you do your research there. We don't have any deadlines in our programs, in our fellowship program here, so it's possible to send in an application anytime. But you should consider that it takes time to process the application, so plan ahead if you're planning to come to Germany, so that to leave enough time for the selection process, and then even after that for actually arranging the visit in Germany, so that you're not too tight on plans and at that point in time. In the fellowship programs, we have a whole range of benefits for fellows. I mentioned the monthly fellowship rate, but there are additional benefits that come with a fellowship. And here I wish to stress that we provide networking support, and Leo mentioned the annual meeting with the federal president. That's something we do annually and invite all fellows and prize winners to get together there. We also invite fellows to go on a study tour through Germany for a 2 weeks period to get to learn, to get to know the country. So the fellowship comes with much more than just that support for the research stay. It's possible to take language courses that we can support, so if you don't speak German, that you can make the effort of learning German while you're there, and that might help you connect with everyday life in Germany. And it is our hallmark that we offer alumni support for fellows then after the initial stay, and I'll briefly talk about that at a later point of time. I wish to mention that we're aware of the fact that it's not just brains coming to Germany, but it's people. People often come with families, and so we have benefits for fellows with families, and only fairly recently we were able to offer the option of extensions for fellows who come to Germany with smaller children to allow for more time to complete the project, since taking care of children can take time, and settling a family into daily life in Germany can also take time. So that's an emphasis, and I'm pleased that we've been able to work on that in the past years. I said that you need to have a collaborative partner in Germany, so it's certainly best if you've met colleagues in Germany at conferences or know who's working in your field of research, who might be someone to address. But we also provide information, and I have a bit here on this slide, of how you can perhaps search for collaborative partners in Germany if you don't know that already. So there are search engines here available from DFG and DAAD that kind of map the German research landscape and allows you to look at who's doing what in which fields of research. So that's the Humboldt Research Fellowship Program, up to 12 years after the PhD. I think that's kind of the bottom line of what I've just said up to this point. And we'll now move on to the next career stages, so what happens beyond 12 years after the PhD, and that's where we have the research prize programs. And as the word prize emphasizes, so in Germany it's Preis, in English we sometimes say award, but I know award can be anything in a way. You can be awarded kind of a grant, but it's actually meant as a prize. So the prize programs are there to allow German researchers to nominate colleagues abroad, who then get recognized for their academic achievements up to the point of nomination. So it's very much a program that is not tied to a research proposal and the idea of having to present something that you will work on in the future, but the idea of supporting someone who has already done excellent work. And with this prize, this can then be used very flexibly for the collaboration. And we have two kind of sets of prize programs, and I'll be speaking about the three on the top. The three on the bottom come with substantial research money, but they're usually then run through the German research system. So for the Alexander von Humboldt professorship, German universities need to nominate and recruit professors to their institutions, which I think is why I won't go into detail here today. The two largest awards program are the Humboldt Research Award and the Friedrich Wilhelm Bessel Research Award. And the difference here is that the Bessel Award aims at the mid-career phase up to 18 years after the PhD, and the Humboldt Research Award is then open to anyone at the height of their academic careers. So here it's a nomination process where the German side has to nominate individuals who will then be recognized for their academic work. And as you heard from Leo, he won the Fraunhofer Bessel Research Award, which the Foundation's selection committee's grant, but it's actually funded by the Fraunhofer Society. So it's an example of how we also collaborate within the German funding organizations to set up our programs. So this is fairly similar to the Bessel Research Award, just that the nomination must come from a Fraunhofer institute, and then the Fraunhofer Society can provide funding for the award. So that's my short mentioning of the prize programs, that I'll be happy to share more information if that's something that you're interested in. I wish to end this part of the presentation on opportunities with a slide on alumni sponsorship opportunities. As I said, we do take the slogan, once a Humboldtian, always a Humboldtian, quite seriously. So we offer a whole range of support for our fellows. And certainly one of them is that we allow for return visits to Germany for basically the entire academic lifetime. We also invite alumni abroad to host Fieldwork fellows, who are German postdocs or experienced researchers, who can then come to New Zealand, in your case, to collaborate with you here, with our alumni here. And like this weekend in Wellington, we provide symposia or funding for meetings of Humboldt Fellows abroad that can be used quite flexibly to organize events and meetings. So with this, let me turn to New Zealand with the last few slides. I mentioned that the idea of the foundation is to recruit individuals who will become members of an international network. And this slide shows you the distribution of fellows around the world currently. So this was done in February 2017. And you can see that Europe has the largest column, so most of our fellows are based in Europe currently. And you can see Australia, New Zealand, and Oceania with 665 fellows over there on the right. So that's a current snapshot of the network, and it's, as I said, nothing that we engineer, so we don't do things to make this look this way, but it's the result of applications and successful applications that we receive. So since the foundation started its programs, we have granted 132 research fellowships to fellows from New Zealand. The prize program started much later, in the 80s. So we've had 9 research prize winners from New Zealand, and 42 Fieldwork fellows from Germany have come to New Zealand to do research here. That kind of shows you the numbers. And as I mentioned, or as I said, we usually look at the network in January, February, and there were about 116 Humboldtians in New Zealand at that time, and about 30 with affiliations at the University of Auckland. So that kind of gives you an idea of where we stand. And this slide shows you the statistics for applications and approvals in our programs for fellows or candidates from New Zealand. And it certainly shows you that with small numbers, it can kind of go wild a little bit. So in some years, we had only very few applications, here too, and unfortunately, they were not successful. And the next year, we had 6 applications from New Zealand, so 50% success rate, which is great. And I certainly think that there's more potential here in New Zealand than these numbers, so 2 or 6 applications. So 10 is certainly more where I think New Zealand could stand in terms of participation. And the 3 fellowships that we granted in 2016 would put New Zealand about on world average. So the 25 to 30% is about the success rate in our fellowship program on the world average. So in a way, this chart also shows that we don't have quotas, so there's not a fixed set of fellowships that we grant to fellows to researchers from New Zealand. But if there are very many good applications, we can fund them, and if the committee is not convinced, then they don't fund any fellowships there. Finally, I wish to mention that the New Zealand government also supports a scheme that works the other way around. So New Zealand researchers can host German researchers through the Julius von Haast Fellowship Award. And certainly that's also worth checking out some of the details if you're interested in supporting your research cooperations in that manner. So inviting Germans to New Zealand, and we're very pleased that the New Zealand government has this scheme, since it doesn't exist in many countries around the world. It's certainly good for New Zealand research here. And with that, I'd come to a close. I think it's a lot of information now, and it's time for your questions. And you have my contact information here. And I also wish to stress that we have a help desk at the foundation, so any questions that are directed to this info@ email actually go to a team of people whose job it is to answer these questions. So it might seem a bit anonymous just to send an email to info@, but that's actually a good place to place your questions if you're interested in the fellowship. But you're also free to contact me and now to ask any questions you might have to either Leo or myself. So thank you for your attention.
So I have a question for you, Leo. So how did you structure your time in Germany? Did you go for one extended period of time? Did you go back and forth for a bit? And did you know German before or after?
So that was the first question my parents asked. What are you doing? And I knew essentially no German. I took up the opportunity to learn German while I was over there. That was quite stressful actually, so I did an intensive class during the day for half a day, and then in the afternoon I went to work, and then at night time I did my German homework. And so that was quite nice and stressful, handing in my homework every morning. And so I structured my visit over a 3-year period. So I did a 3-month visit, and then a 2-month visit, and then a 3-month visit, and I did a total of 8 months. So that's how I structured my visit. Any other questions?
Just one about children. What age are children? Does the schooling start in Germany? About young kids, so is it 6 or 7? And do you know stories about how that works? And, is it the younger they go, the easier it is to learn the language?
So a question about the German school system and advice for fellows with families. The German school system is state-funded, so there's slight differences between the states in Germany. So the different places you go might have a slightly different school system. And like with many school systems around the world, there have been a few experiments here and there. But generally, school in German, children start school at around the age of 6. That's when school starts, and then there's elementary school, and then there's there are other forms of school then afterwards. I think you should speak to other fellows who have been to Germany with children to kind of sort out the questions that might have. And I know that since your school years are exactly half a year apart from the German school year, I know fellows from Australia who've had to do some explaining to German teachers about how this works here. But I only know of cases where everyone has been able to sort this out eventually.
I can add a little bit to that from N=1. So I met an award winner, I think I was, and he had 2 children, about 10 and 11-ish, 2 girls, from America who knew no German at all. They enrolled them in a German-only speaking school, which is, I guess it's quite intensive. And after 12 months, they were fully fluent in German. And they would love to go back to Germany again. So I think from that one case, there was no problems. There were some tears at the start, obviously, but they're fully fluent in German, and so they were given a test by some of our colleagues, and they had no accents or anything afterwards.
What about research that involves fieldwork? And maybe Germany is not necessarily the best place. Would you allow some time in Germany and sometimes somewhere else where it's best to do your research?
So a question about field work. Unfortunately, the fellowship is set up in a way where the stipend is meant to cover cost of living in Germany. So if you're not in Germany, then there's a certain problem that goes with that. We do have the opportunity for a European research stay, so it's possible to spend 25% of the fellowship time in a different European country, and it's not just European Union, but it's a broader definition of Europe. But if your fieldwork is somewhere outside of that general area, then it will be complicated to do that as part of the fellowship.
What about French
So-
Polynesia? French Polynesia counts?
Probably not. Yeah, so the cases that I know, their fellows have then tried to find other funding sources for the time that they're abroad doing field work, or to choose a timeline where the field work can either be done before the fellowship begins, or you can interrupt the fellowship in between, or these kinds of solutions.
Could you say a bit more about what the collaboration with the host in Germany might look like?
Leah, do you want to say how yours look like?
So I guess it's different for every different collaborations, and I had two hosts, and one host was very engaging, and I met with them every other day, and we did things on the weekends. Another host was less engaging, and I think it's very dependent upon your particular hosts. Yeah, so it's hard to generalize that, I think.
Can you give some information about the initial approach to the host? How did you approach? Did you send them an email? How did you start the...
So I've known one of my hosts for many, many years, and the other host I knew via association with that other host. So I don't have a general rule, but I guess conferences are always a good opportunity. There needs to be some sort of match, I think. So there's no point a host saying yes, but not really wanting to engage with you, I think. You want to have some sort of overlap, I think. Do you want to comment any further?
No, I think that's good advice. Yeah. And that also speaks to your question about how the collaboration might work. It should suit the needs that you have for your research project, and you should, discuss that with your host and be kind of open about it. That would be my advice, at least, so that both of you are on a good grounds when this whole project starts.
And if I add a little bit more, there was another person that I met whose host was not very engaging, but another researcher saw that, and they developed some collaborative research that was not known about previously, and that's been very successful, and they've sent students backwards and forwards, and I think they continued with this collaboration. So that was an unknown opportunity as well that eventuated. Question here?
Yeah. Say, for example, we find the host in Germany, and then we get in touch, and we come up. So they agree to host, and this can be any scholar or academic person in Germany, and then you tell them, this is the reason why I want to work for you, because I want to apply for this fellowship, and then you go from there. That's how it happens.
Thank you.
It surely can happen that way. I think probably most researchers in Germany are used to getting these kinds of questions. So I would say that you kind of use the skills that you have that you would otherwise have in other countries as well in approaching people. I mean, sometimes you have to consider that there are many people wanting to maybe come and do research with a person. So that might be something to consider. But generally, I know that the German research landscape is quite open to hosting international fellows, and then they will consider supporting you for a Humboldt Research Fellowship. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Would it be correct to say that most professors understand about the system and they're getting emails every now and then, so
They're pretty much used to.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe not every single person, but
Yeah, no, my worry was like you contact someone and they don't know anything about it, and that would come as a surprise, and then.
I
That's
think
why
that
I
would be
asked.
unlikely, I think. Question?
Does the host need to be within the academia? For example, if I'm working in Auckland University and then I want to get a collaboration with Symonds in Germany or another manufacturer, is it possible?
we don't have formalized procedures for that. Although generally, German companies would then have the resources to host you. But there are many connections between companies and then the more science-related research landscape. So sometimes there are connections with research between researchers there, and it's possible. What's important for the foundation is that it's genuine research and not development of products. So even if it's industry near or with ties to industry, it has to be research that is done.
And to add further, I think it would be not uncommon for a big company to have very strong links with the universities that happen to be nearby. As in my case, Fraunhofer and University of Stuttgart have very strong links with the companies that are surrounding them. Any final questions? One final question.
Just to make a comment for people locally, that we do have a website in New Zealand which may be worth promoting to people, which is humboldt.org.nz,
Okay.
which has a list of New Zealand Humboldtians and also people who've been Fieldwork fellows in New Zealand. So essentially all members of the Humboldt family who have connections with New Zealand. Such people, such Fieldwork who have returned to Germany will often be very keen to receive requests to act as hosts. On the website you will find lists of Fieldwork fellows. So perhaps we could write on the board what the address is. It's www.humboldt.org.nz.
I think we're going to bring that up on the screen now. Just for the microphone, we're going to bring up on the computer the website for the New Zealand von Humboldt Association, and there's a list of the people associated with the von Humboldt family that are based in New Zealand. So that's the website. I meant to put that up on my presentation slides. So that's a good place to look for other people that you can ask questions, and maybe for people that have returned to Germany that they might be good hosts if they're good matches. Okay, thank you very much for your patience and your time. We're going to there's some nibbles available, and Katrin and I will both, and Anna will both be here if you want to answer any specific questions. Thank you very much.